Murray, who leads our security team. As you know, both men have been involved in gang activity in the 90s in Shreveport and certainly have a level of expertise that we as educators rely on when addressing situations such as this. I do think the purpose of today's call, though, specifically is around the situations that happened at Southwood on yesterday as well as today. But I think more importantly, the issue that happened at Southwood a few weeks ago and issues that we've seen happen in numerous schools across our parish as we've entered into this school year. I do think it's very important to note, though, many of the students involved, in fact, I'll have a percentage for you soon, have not been engaged in school because of virtual learning opportunities created by the pandemic. So I do think that some of the issues are with transitioning back to the structures of life on campus. But I think more importantly, and I think we can document that a lot of the activity is related to a recent surge in gang activity. And again, it's important that we note this will not be tolerated in our schools. What we are looking at today is that we've had a situation where we've had 8 girls involved in a girl fight, 8 girls involved in a fight, and we do have evidence that this fight actually began in one of the local apartment complexes last night and spilled over into the school today. At the same time, yesterday, we had 14 students arrested and charged with disturbing the peace and gang fighting. And again, we have all the documentation to support that this is gang behavior. Please know that whenever this happens in our school, we certainly will take the appropriate action to address the behavior and also make sure that we're creating a safe environment for our students. I think it's important to stress to families that, you know, of all the students at Southwood, the students involved represent a little over 1.4%, that 99% of the kids deserve to be celebrated for coming to school, doing exactly what they were supposed to do, and really taking advantage of the wonderful gift of education. But at the same time, to address this issue, because 0.1% is we have to address, there are things that we've done immediately at Southwood, and many of these things have been in place as we've gone through the last few weeks. One thing that you will see at Southwood, and you'll see this consistently, is an increase in security. That's coming from our Sheriff's Department, as well as from our internal police, our internal security coordinators, which is a team that Mr. Murray does manage. Mr. Murray, as well as law enforcement, will continue to work closely with the leadership on campus around ensuring that the best safety plans are in place. And that does include supervision schedules, making sure that we do have supervision in the appropriate places. You'll see that we will continue to increase our random searches, and then that's using metal detectors. And we will also, again, make sure that whenever we identify something, we will take serious, immediate action in that situation. Now, I think it's important to note also that we're going to have to reach out to our community. We're going to have to reach out to our students to do everything they can to create that safety net where they can give us heads up on things that are happening. In fact, if you look at the situation that happened with the 14 guys that fought yesterday, there were 4 attempts to fight, but we're able to identify those students early on, and we prevented the fight for a large part of the day. I do think it's important to note, though, that even as we increase security, because I have no doubt in my mind, we will secure Southwood and will be safe for students every day. But I think more importantly, I'm very concerned with the fact that the students that are involved are our students. They may go to alternative school for a period, but even while they're in the alternative school, they're our responsibility, and really look to moving the conversation to around those proactive measures that we're going to take as a community to ensure that our children are safe and that they can learn and be as successful as possible. In that respect, we are moving in towards some proactive conversations around what are those mentor relationships that we need students. How can we better support parents? Because all of us have a part to bear, but we certainly want to make sure that we're supporting parents in helping us to identify when students are involved in behavior that's not appropriate. But more importantly, how can we add that support so parents can better supervise and help us manage the students and the behavior that's coming into the school? And again, I say that owning that we are responsible for managing a safe environment in school, and I think we have a pretty good track record of being able to do that. I do think how we involve the community is going to be important. I had a call from a local pastor today offering support, and those are the type of things that are appreciated in a time such as this, because again, this is Southwood today, but if you are realistic and you speak with our law enforcement in our community, these are issues that we face throughout our community, and we have dealt with this not just at Southwood, but in other high schools in our districts as well. Lastly, I would like to really speak to things that we're doing internally around really creating some think tanks around how do we best support our students, how do we best support our campus leadership. So you will see opportunities for community persons to even be engaged in some of those think tanks. Again, we stand firmly that this behavior is not acceptable and will not be tolerated at Southwood or any of our facilities. At the same time, we stand firmly available to support family and community in helping us to help our children to make better decisions. I would like to give Mr. Murray, our Sheriff Prator, an opportunity to speak if they have something they'd like to add, and then we'll just take questions from our media partners. And we can start with the Sheriff.
Well, thank you, Dr. Goree, and we enjoy a good working relationship with the Caddo Parish School Board and all of the personnel involved with that. I agree with you that we need to, and it's our obligation to provide a secure place for the students to come to learn something, and the 99% that want to, we want to provide that environment for them. And we do have a responsibility. The parents also have a responsibility. The parents of these 1%. I know there's sometimes that kids and young people will do things that are not appropriate and parents wouldn't approve of, but there's many times that what we're seeing is these gangsters and these thugs are coming to school and they've had no discipline. They've got no parent that's tracking what they're doing and watching what they're doing. And that's where we're missing the boat. So the parents have a responsibility to send us young people to the school that are used to discipline, that have some sort of desire to learn something, and they're not just going because they have to go or just going because they have a chance to come up there and stir up some strife for everybody else. So that's where, I understand there's two different philosophies a little bit, but I want these parents of these young people to really get involved in what they're doing on the social media, what they're doing after school. If they're gone at 2:00 in the morning, somebody ought to be calling the police, calling the DA's office, calling the juvenile authorities, and getting involved in your kids' lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheriff. And I do agree with you. And again, one thing I think it's important to note, to kind of piggyback on that, a part of our strategic plan really looks at creating our parent academy for our district. And when we look at the parent academy and types of supports that we will provide, a lot of this conversation will be in that space where we will be able to ensure that we're doing everything to support students being successful. I agree with the Sheriff. Students shouldn't be out on Uri Drive or any street at 2:00 in the morning. And I certainly can't control that, but we certainly will control what happens within the schools.
That's right. If you want to go fight somebody, you go somewhere else to do it. Don't come to school.
Mr. Murray?
Thank you, Dr. Goree. Certainly you covered most of the things that we're doing at the school. I do want to thank the Sheriff. Sheriff's been very supportive over the years at Caddo Parish School Board. And I also want to thank the Southwood Police Department. They've worked with us very well in a number of schools around the city, and they continue to work with us. The Sheriff has the SRO at Southwood, so he's certainly been supportive of all the schools where he provides the SRO at the school. We're working with the administration at the school right now to improve the supervision out there during times that the students are on the move. We've increased the security coordinators. The Sheriff has helped us with increasing the law enforcement presence out there. We'll continue to work with the Sheriff. We'll continue to work with the administration to keep Southwood and make Southwood as safe as we can possibly make.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. McDonald will now entertain questions from any of our media friends.
Okay, so what we'll do if you do have a question, if you would like to just raise your hand through the reactions icon, and then I will ask you to unmute your microphone. Let's see. Okay.
I did that. We did just that good of a job.
Did I have any hands raised? I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I raised my hand.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Darren.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, I just had a few questions. I see that you guys said something about random searches. I did hear you say that you're going to possibly put metal detectors in this high school, Southwood school.
No. Thank you so much for clarifying. No, we're not going to put metal detectors in the school. We will do random metal detector checks. And what that is we already employ this in our school, where we will randomly select a class, take those students, and they will walk through a metal detector. We're going to increase the number of opportunities to do that. And a lot of that, again, is being based on information that we're receiving from the community as we process these situations. And again, this is an effort to ensure that we are creating safe environments. So thank you so much for the question. It's not gonna be like the airport, but what we will do is increase random metal detector checks throughout the school.
Now, is that something that you guys are only doing at this high school, or is that something that's
So
going to be implemented?
We do metal detection checks at all of our high schools, and don't want to speak specifically to how often we are doing them in other schools. We will do an increase in this school is what I will commit to.
And my last question is, what's the disciplinary action for the 22 students that were involved with Thursday and also today? I know they have been charged with disturbing the peace, but will they be allowed to come back to the school eventually?
Right. I won't speak to those students specifically, as I cannot, because they are our students in our system. But what I will tell you is that our discipline policy is very clear around gang fighting. And what you do is you go through our attendance process, where your placement will be determined by one of our attendance supervisors in many situations. And again, I don't want to speak specifically to these children. You will be suspended pending hearing. Upon the recommendation of that expulsion hearing, you will be expelled to our alternative school. And again, that's speaking generally, not speaking to these children. And I certainly believe they deserve due process as anyone does.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay, before we have another question, we also have our board member who represents District 10, which Southwood High School falls within. Mr. Tony Nations, if you have any comments, you're free to do so.
Well, understandably, I have had several phone calls from constituents, mainly parents, who are expressing their concern about the safety of their student at school. And I try to allay their fears by letting them know that our staff, including Dr. Goree and Mr. Monero and Mr. Murray, are all on top of this and doing their absolute dead level best to get a handle on this. It's unfortunate that some think that they can act with impunity and not have their behavior checked, especially on a high school campus. We are there to educate our students. That's our first and foremost priority. And anything that would hinder that, would interrupt that, we just cannot tolerate it, and we'll take the appropriate measures necessary to deal with those outside forces, whatever they may be, that would serve to interrupt that learning process. And we just cannot have it. And so I have all of the confidence in the world in our staff to do what's needed to get this problem under control. But I do understand and sympathize with the frustration and the anxiety that especially our parents have, and I'm sure it's on the part of the students and the staff as well. It's so not conducive to the learning environment, and hope we can get a handle on this very soon and get back to the task of what we're all about, is giving them the best possible education that we can.
Thank you, Mr. Nations. Are there any other questions from our media partners?
Sharnay, I would like to make a closing comment as well, if we don't have any other questions. I do want to certainly also, in a conversation with Mr. Monero, who is our director of high schools today, want to really thank Dr. Pendleton and her entire team at Southwood. They've dealt with this for the last few weeks and certainly have been responsive as we've made changes, and we look to continue to do that. But again, really do thank them because I've sat in the high school principal seat, and I've seen this, this rash of inappropriate behavior and how that can consume your life. So really do thank that entire administrative team for all that they've done to help us support proactive change at Southwood. Also want to thank the parents. So many parents have reached out to me from a supportive space. And what I want to tell those parents is that I promise you, just like what you saw today at Southwood, just like you saw the last time, the district will continue to be responsive and committed to this not being the story of our system. I think we've seen crime rates in our city that we wanted to see improve when we hadn't seen that in our schools in the last 8 years is what I'll speak to. And we certainly don't plan for this to start to be our narrative this year. So I assure you parents, every effort will be taken to create the safest environment and to really create proactive opportunities for children to learn and be successful. And that's 100% of them. But some of it's a choice. And again, where that choice is not appropriate, there will be no place for you in our high schools, or our schools, period.
And Dr. Goree, before we let everybody go, I think it needs once again to be clarified and said that these young people are not coming in and finding some reason to fight once they're at school.
Right.
They are bringing the neighborhood fights or the neighborhood disturbances or disagreements, and then they are coming together at school. So it's not the school environment that is causing the fighting at all. It's not bumping into somebody in the hallway, something that could be really the responsibility of the school administration. It's not like that. These are gangsters that are coming in from Cedar Grove and different areas of town, meeting other gangs, and they're bumping into each other at the school. And it's just a very minority of the kids in the school. But those 2 points need to be brought out again. It's very few of the ones doing it. But when they come in, then they're bringing the neighborhood disagreements into the school. That's what we've got to prevent. And we need the parents to help prevent that.
Thank you, Sheriff. I certainly appreciate your support in this effort too. One thing I too want to reassure parents is that with athletic events, we will see increased security in those spaces as well to ensure that we have a hold until we are sure that we have a hold of the situation that's happening.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate all of your questions, and this stream will be available. I'll send a link out to everyone who was on the original invitation. Thank you all for joining us.
We are Caddo.
Thank you.
We are Caddo.